Can you take me to find my mom? The words hit Ethan Cole like a brick through glass. He hadn't even opened the door all the way before the child blurted them out. A 6-year-old black girl stood on his porch, rain dripping off her braids, her pink backpack plastered to her small shoulders. Her voice didn't tremble, though if anything, it carried a quiet command, the kind only desperation could give. Ethan blinked, unsure if he'd heard her right. Before he could respond, the girl added with startling bluntness, "If you say no, I'll just stand here until the storm takes me. And then it'll be your fault." For a man who had steered billion-dollar negotiations without flinching, the words were a sucker punch. He straightened, instinctively glancing up and down the quiet Houston street as if neighbors might be watching this bizarre tableau. "What did you just say?" he asked. "You heard me," the girl replied, her eyes level with his. "My mom's lost. She always gets lost. But this time she didn't come back. You're the only one with lights on, so you're going to help me." Max, his retired police dog, padded forward with a low chuff, tail swishing. He nosed at the girl's backpack, teeth catching on a bit of faded fabric dangling from the zipper. She tugged it free and held it up a floral scarf, soaked through. "She dropped this by the fence," the child whispered. Max smelled it, didn't he? Behind Ethan, Mrs. Green's voice carried from the hallway. "Who is it, Mr. Cole?" "Trouble," he muttered, though his eyes never left the girl. "Please don't call the police," she pressed, suddenly fierce. "If you do, they'll take me away. They always say it's for my safety, but it just means I'll never see her again. Do you want to be the man who takes a kid's mom away?" That last sentence shocked him more than the storm itself. He opened his mouth to deliver the automatic refusal, the liability speech, the tidy dismissal, but the words stuck. The girl squared her shoulders, impossibly small in his doorway, yet unflinching. "You're rich, right? Everyone says the man in the glass house has everything. Well, prove it. Prove you have a heart too." Ethan felt the air tighten, the thunder rolling like an echo to her dare. His instincts screamed to shut the door, to wall himself back inside his orderly empire of silence and screens. But then Max gave a short, decisive bark. Mrs. Green appeared, eyes flicking from the drenched child to the scarf in the dog's mouth. "Ethan," she said softly, "sometimes the decent thing costs you." The girl, Anna, she introduced herself between shivers, clutched her drawing of her mother in one hand, crayon lines already bleeding from the rain. She promised she'd be home by dinner. Dinner was 2 nights ago. If this story moved you, tell us how it made you feel in the comments below. We read every word. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Ethan's pulse stumbled. Memories he had buried for decades resurfaced. His own boyhood night waiting in the rain, nobody coming, the cold bite of abandonment. He had sworn never again, and now here was this child, standing exactly where he once stood, refusing to back down. He swore under his breath, snatched his car keys off the hook, and draped his own tailored jacket around her tiny shoulders. "All right," he said, voice sharper than he intended. "Get in the car, we'll look." The girl exhaled, not relief exactly, but something steadier trust. She let Max nudge her inside, dripping footprints across his marble floor. Moments later, as the SUV's wipers slashed at the storm, Ethan felt the world he had built tilting dangerously away from order. His jaw clenched, but he didn't turn back, because the girl beside him, eyes wide on the wet streets ahead, had already tethered him to a promise he couldn't undo. Ethan Cole had driven through storms before, but never with a 6-year-old strapped into the leather seat beside him and a retired K9 watching the road from the back. The black SUV hummed over the slick asphalt, wipers thudding like a metronome against the glass. Every few seconds, Ethan glanced at the girl. Anna sat with her knees pulled to her chest under his oversized suit jacket. Her face half lit by the dashboard glow. She looked exhausted, but her eyes stayed open, scanning the passing streets as if expecting to spot her mother at any moment. "Where do we start?" Ethan asked finally, his voice rougher than he intended. He was used to issuing orders, not seeking direction from children. Anna hugged the damp scarf in her lap. "The bus station. She always wanders there when she's restless. Sometimes she rides buses just to ride. Says it feels like moving without having to think. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. A woman with untreated mental illness lost in the city on a night like this. Houston was a sprawl of streets that swallowed people whole. All right, he said. Bus station at Island. Meh. Max gave a low rumble of approval. Anna shifted, studying Ethan's profile. You don't talk like you care. But you wouldn't be driving me if you didn't. He almost snapped back that this wasn't charity, it was damage control. But the words caught in his throat. Instead, he muttered, "Drink your cocoa before it gets cold." She eyed the travel mug he had handed her when they left. My mom says cocoa makes you remember you're human. You forget that sometimes? The jab startled him. Few adults dared talk to Ethan Cole that way. He didn't answer. The storm was easing as they turned into Midtown, neon signs smearing across puddled streets. At the metro bus station, the parking lot glistened under fluorescent lights. Ethan parked near the entrance. Anna hopped out, clutching her scarf. Max bounded after her, ears pricked. Inside, the air smelled of damp concrete, burnt coffee, and weary travelers. A night attendant with a wrinkled uniform shirt sat behind a plexiglass counter, scrolling his phone. He looked up slowly as Ethan approached. The weight of billionaire presence, unspoken but palpable. Ethan didn't bother with introductions. We're looking for a woman, early 30s, black, thin, floral scarf. She might have been here tonight. The attendant rubbed his jaw, glancing at Anna. Lot of folks come through. What's her name? Tasha. Anna peeped up, standing on tiptoe. She was wearing her blue coat. Did you see her? The man frowned, thinking. Might have. Saturday, on that bench by the far wall couple hours back. Left in a hurry. Dropped something too, I think. They hurried over. Max sniffed the wet concrete near the bench and whined. Ethan's eyes caught a glint under the seat, a cracked cell phone. He pulled it out carefully. Rainwater dripping from the shattered screen. Anna gasped. That's hers. She never lets go of it. Ethan turned it over in his palm. Useless now, but proof she had been here. Which way did she go? He demanded. The attendant shrugged. Toward the side exit. Cameras might have caught it. But those are corporate property. Need authorization. Of course, Ethan muttered, jaw tight. He slipped the phone into his jacket. He would find another way. Anna tugged at his sleeve. She's close. I can feel it. Her conviction unavailed him. It wasn't childish fantasy. It was the stubborn certainty of someone who had grown up filling the gaps left by adults who failed her. He crouched, meeting her eyes. Listen to me, Anna. We'll look, but you have to stay close. You understand? You don't run off, no matter what you think you feel. I'm not afraid, she said. You are. The truth of it made him flinch. Back in the SUV, Anna clutched the broken phone like a lifeline. Ethan drove toward Montrose, following her instinct more than logic. They passed corner stores with neon beer signs, taco trucks closing for the night, and clusters of people huddling under awnings. Where else does she go? Ethan asked. There's a clinic, Anna whispered. Sometimes when she feels sick. A church place with a red door. Ugh. It took only minutes for Ethan to find it. A community health clinic run out of a converted church building, its red double doors glowing faintly under a floodlight. The parking lot was nearly empty. Inside, the reception desk was unmanned, but a nurse in scrubs emerged from a back hallway. She looked tired but kind. Can I help you? Anna ran forward, scarf clutched tight. Have you seen my mom? She gets dizzy. She comes here sometimes. The nurse's expression softened with recognition. Yes. She was here earlier tonight. Blood sugar low. We gave her juice and crackers. Wanted her to stay until someone could pick her up. But she insisted on leaving. Said she couldn't miss her shift. Shift? Ethan pressed. At a gas mart, I think. She didn't look well. Kept saying she'd lose her job if she didn't go. Ethan exhaled through his nose. Another thread in a web of desperation. Wage theft. Fear of losing hours, he knew the pattern. Which way did she go? The nurse shook her head. On foot. Toward the bus stop again. Anna's face crumpled. Ethan rested a hand awkwardly on her shoulder. We'll keep looking. Outside, they paused under the clinic awning. Rain dripped steadily from the eaves. Anna hugged herself, shivering. She always works too hard. People take advantage because she's sick. She tells me she's strong enough. But she's not. Ethan looked down at her. How long has it been like this? Always. Anna's voice was flat, too old for her age. People think if someone's different in their head, they don't matter. But she matters to me. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a sting behind his eyes. He turned away quickly, focusing on Max sniffing the sidewalk. The dog barked once, pulling toward the street. Let's go, Ethan said, forcing steel back into his voice. They drove again, following the dog's instincts more than reason. The city blurred by. Anna dozed briefly, cheek pressed against the window, scarf still in her grip. Ethan stole a glance at her sleeping face. He had avoided children for decades, telling himself he was too broken, too busy. But here she was, dragging him into a mess no stock option could fix. When she stirred awake, she whispered, "If we don't find her, they'll take me." "Not while I'm here," Ethan said before he realized he meant it. Her small hand tightened around his sleeve. "Then don't leave." Ugh. The words hung in the cab heavier than the storm itself. For Ethan Cole, who had built walls of glass and stone to keep the world out, there was no undoing them now. He had already crossed the line. By dawn, the storm had thinned into mist, and Houston's skyline glowed pale behind a curtain of gray. Ethan Cole guided the SUV toward a squat gas mart on the edge of a feeder road, neon sign flickering over puddles. The address matched what the nurse at the clinic had said. Anna leaned forward in her seat, eyes locked on the building as if sheer willpower might summon her mother out of its shadow. Max pressed his muzzle against the window, ears twitching. Ethan pulled into the lot, scanning the quiet storefront. The convenience store's glass door was propped open with a cracked cinder block. Inside, a few stragglers shuffled through aisles of coffee and energy drinks. Behind the counter stood a man with a thick neck, thinning hair, and the worn expression of someone who thought authority was the same as arrogance. His name tag read, R.A.Y. Anna slid out of the car before Ethan could stop her. She darted ahead, scarf clutched in her hand. "Mister, did you see my mom? Tasha Williams. She works here sometimes." Ray barely glanced down at her. "Kid, I don't got time for." Then his eyes caught Ethan stepping through the door, suit jacket damp but posture rigid, Max at his side. Recognition flickered. Ray straightened, as if sensing a man used to being obeyed. "She was here," Ethan said flatly. "Last night." He set the cracked phone on the counter. "She left this at the bus station. The clinic said she came here for her shift." Ray sniffed, unimpressed. "People come and go." "She clocked in, clocked out. Not my problem where she wandered." Anna planted her small fists on the counter. "She didn't come home. Tell us what happened." The man's smirk carried a trace of cruelty. "Look, sweetheart, maybe Mama decided she had better things to do. Some folks aren't built for responsibility." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Watch your mouth." Ray shrugged, tapping a clipboard lazily. "All I know is she cut out early. System shows she left before midnight." Ethan leaned forward. "Let me see the ledger." "Ugh." Ray hesitated, then pushed the clipboard across. The pages were messy, times overwritten in smudged ink. Ethan's trained eye caught it immediately. 2 different pens, numbers written over original entries. "These records were altered," he said coldly. "Who signed off?" Ray's smirk faltered. "System's complicated. Mistakes happen." Anna's voice sliced the air. "You're lying. My mom would never leave without me." The room stilled. A trucker at the coffee machine glanced over, curiosity piqued. Max gave a deep growl, nose pointing toward the mop closet door. Ethan stepped around the counter before Ray could protest. He yanked the closet open. Inside, amid buckets and rags, lay a lanyard ID badge with Tasha's photo. Ethan held it up. "Explain this." Ray's face reddened. "She probably dropped it. Don't mean she didn't leave." "You threw it out," Ethan said. His voice was ice, and for a moment even Ray looked away. Anna's eyes filled, but she stood tall. "You're hiding something." Ethan closed the closet and turned to Ray. "I'll need your security footage from last night." Ray barked a laugh. "Cameras were down. Maintenance issue." "That's convenient," Ethan replied. "Except I already called the vendor this morning. They confirmed the system was live." "You're lying again." The tension in the store thickened. The trucker abandoned his coffee and muttered, "Man's got a point." Ray jabbed a finger at Ethan. "This is trespassing. You and your mutt better get out before I call the cops." "Do it," Ethan said, stepping closer, his voice low and lethal. "And I'll call the Department of Labor, the press, and half the attorneys in this city. Let's see which call ruins your career faster." Ray's bravado cracked. Sweat beaded on his temple. He looked at Anna, then away. "Where did she go?" Ethan demanded. Ray muttered, "I don't know. She walked off toward the bus lines. That's all I got." Ethan didn't believe him, but Anna's trembling lip kept him from pressing harder. He pocketed the lanyard, guiding her gently toward the door. Max barked once, as if to punctuate the unfinished business. Outside, the morning air smelled of wet asphalt and diesel fumes. Anna clutched Ethan's sleeve. "He knows something. I could tell." "I know," Ethan said, "and we'll get to the truth." He opened the SUV door for her. "But first we follow the trail we do have." As they drove away, Ethan's phone buzzed. A message from his board chair flashed across the screen. "Stop whatever you're doing. Press has photos of you with a child. Investors are panicking." He ignored it. Anna, watching him silently, finally asked, "Why are you helping me?" "People usually walk away when they see us." He considered lying, but instead said, "Because I once stood in the rain and nobody came. I swore I'd never be the man who closed the door." "Vu." She studied him for a long time, then whispered, "Then don't start now." Max whined softly in agreement. The SUV rolled onto the freeway, toward the bus station again. The city stretching before them like a riddle waiting to be solved. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. The battle had begun, and he knew the real fight wasn't just finding Tasha, it was facing the rot that let men like Ray bury the truth. The freeway hummed beneath the tires as Ethan steered back toward Midtown. Anna sat curled in the passenger seat, the floral scarf balled in her hands. Max paced once across the back seat, restless, his nose pressed to the crack of the window as if the city itself carried the trail. Ethan's phone kept buzzing against the console messages from his board chair, his legal counsel, his assistant, but he let it vibrate unanswered. He had made his choice hours ago. The bus station loomed ahead, a hulking concrete structure with a glow of fluorescent lights that never seemed to turn off. Ethan parked near the side entrance, cutting the engine. He turned to Anna. "Stay close to me this time. No wandering." Anna gave a sharp nod, eyes steady. "I want to see if anyone else saw her." Inside, the place smelled of stale coffee and diesel. Travelers slumped on plastic chairs, heads bent over phones, eyes glazed from sleepless nights. A janitor pushed a mop down one aisle, water sloshing. At the far end of the lobby, a security guard in a faded uniform leaned against a post, sipping from a styrofoam cup. He was older, mid-60s maybe, with a grizzled beard and the posture of a man who had stood too many night shifts. Ethan approached, Max heeling at his side. "Excuse me," he said. "We're looking for a woman. Black, early 30s, thin, floral scarf. Might have been here last night." The guard's eyes flicked to Anna, his tone softened. "You her girl?" Anna nodded fiercely. "Her name's Tasha. She didn't come back." The guard let out a long breath, glancing around before lowering his voice. "Yeah, I saw her. About midnight. She was shaky, like she hadn't eaten. Saturday, right over there by the vending machines. I offered to call someone, but she waved me off." Anna's grip on the scarf tightened. "Did she leave alone?" The guard's brows knit. "That's the thing. A guy in a blue work jacket came up logo from one of those fuel companies. He talked to her a minute, then kind of guided her out. She didn't fight it, but she looked uneasy." They headed toward the service alleys. Ethan's chest tightened. Did you get a good look at his face? Not real clear, stocky, white, maybe 50s. Had a cap pulled low. But I remember the jacket, dark blue, with a Briggs fuel patch. Anna looked up sharply. That's where that mean man works. The one at the gas mart. Mull. Ray Sutter. Ethan thought grimly. This was no coincidence. Can you show me where they went? Ethan asked. The guard hesitated, then nodded. Come on. He led them through a side door into the damp alley behind the station. The concrete glistened with rain. Dumpsters lined against the wall. Max immediately lowered his nose, tugging toward a chain-link fence at the far end. Right there, the guard said, pointing. They went through that gate. I figured maybe they worked together, didn't think much of it. But she didn't look right. Ethan crouched where Max was sniffing. A shred of paper lay half buried in a puddle. He picked it up carefully. A pay stub. Smeared, but legible. Tasha's name. Briggs. Fuel printed at the top. Hours slashed down to a fraction of what she'd worked. Anna peered over his arm. They stole from her, she whispered. Ethan's voice hardened. Yes, and they meant for no one to notice. He slid the stub into his jacket. The guard shifted uneasily. Listen, mister. I didn't sign up to get in the middle of something ugly. But that girl, he nodded at Anna, deserves answers. You didn't hear it from me, but Briggs keeps an old warehouse near the bayou. They use it for storage. Saw a truck headed that way same night. Ethan stood, meeting the guard's weary eyes. You've done the right thing. If anyone asks, you saw nothing. The guard gave a half smile. Old soldier like me knows when to pick battles. Good luck, sir. Back in the SUV, Anna turned to Ethan, voice trembling with hope and fury. So he took her. Ray's boss. They made her go. Ethan started the engine. That's what it looks like. Then let's go now. He shook his head. Not yet. We need to be smart. Charging in blind could hurt her. Anna's shoulders slumped, but she didn't argue. Max whined in the back, pawing at the cracked phone Ethan had left on the seat. The screen, though ruined, flickered faintly when Ethan pressed the button. A fragment of the lock screen appeared, a picture of Anna and Tasha at a park, smiling despite worn clothes. Ethan's throat tightened. Anna caught the look. That's us, she said softly. She said we're enough, even when people treat us like we're not. Ethan slid the phone back. His mind calculated risks the way it always had, what leverage to gather. Who to call? Which step first? But for once, the cost wasn't stock or shareholders. It was a child's belief in him, fragile and fierce at once. His own phone buzzed again. This time he glanced at the screen. A news alert. A blurry photo of him holding Anna's hand outside the clinic. Headline screaming, "Reclusive billionaire seen with child amid missing. Person mystery." His board chair's number flashed immediately after. He silenced it. Anna watched him, quiet, then said, "If they make you choose between your company and helping us, what will you do?" The question lodged deep. Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he pulled onto the freeway, headlights cutting through the thinning mist. In the rearview mirror, Max's eyes glowed steady, as if reminding him that loyalty wasn't negotiable. As the city blurred past, Ethan knew the fight had changed. It was no longer about finding a missing woman in the sprawl of Houston. It was about exposing the men who thrived on silence, who preyed on the vulnerable because no one powerful bothered to look. Anna leaned against the window, still clutching the scarf. "We'll find her," she murmured, half asleep. "We have to." Ethan glanced at her small form wrapped in his jacket, then back at the road. For the first time, he said the words out loud. "Yes, we will." The SUV roared east, toward the warehouses by the bayou, toward answers he knew would not come easy. The clinic's red double doors glowed faintly under the dim morning sky, a beacon in the drizzle that still lingered. Ethan pulled the SUV into the cracked lot, cutting the engine. The building looked tired, bricks stained by decades of weather, but the painted sign above the entrance, Montrose Community Health, stood bold. Anna pressed her forehead against the glass. She comes here a lot. When her head hurts. When she can't stop shaking. Duh. Ethan studied the weary structure, the narrow windows lined with faded curtains. He had never set foot in a place like this. His doctors came to him, summoned with a phone call. This was where people went when they had nowhere else. He unbuckled his seatbelt. Let's see if they know more. Inside, the lobby was quiet. A vending machine hummed, stocked with generic sodas and crackers. Flyers on the wall advertised mental health support groups, addiction recovery meetings, and free flu shots. Anna clung to his sleeve, scarf pressed tight against her chest. Max patted ahead, nails clicking on the tile. At the reception desk sat a woman in scrubs, her hair wrapped neatly, a small gold cross at her neck. She looked up, surprise flickering at the sight of Ethan in his damp suit and Anna in his oversized jacket. "Can I help you?" "Yes," Ethan said, his tone softened. "We're looking for Tasha Williams. She was here last night." Her daughter says she comes often." The nurse's expression shifted to recognition, then worry. "Yes, I remember. She came in looking weak, blood sugar low, very disoriented. We gave her juice, some crackers, checked vitals, but she refused to stay. Said she had to get to work, or she'd lose her job." Anna stepped forward. "She left her phone at the bus stop. And she never came home." The nurse leaned closer. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." She looked to Ethan. "She mentioned the Briggs fuel station, said they keep cutting her hours and threatening to fire her if she's late. It was eating her alive with stress." Ethan pulled the pay stub from his pocket, spreading the damp paper on the counter. "Like this?" Her eyes widened. "Yes. We see this too often. Employers shaving hours, exploiting people who can't fight back. But if she called them out, she feared they'd fire her, and with her condition, she didn't have choices." Ethan finished quietly. The nurse nodded. Sadness etched across her face. "That woman loves her daughter. She talked about Anna the whole time. Said she was the only thing keeping her steady." Anna sniffled but held her chin high. "Then she wouldn't leave me." The nurse reached over the counter, squeezing Anna's hand. "No, darling, she wouldn't. Something kept her away." Max gave a sudden sharp bark, startling them. He sniffed the air, pacing toward the side hallway. Ethan followed. At the end of the corridor, a bulletin board hung with notes and cards. One piece of paper caught his eye, a volunteer sign-up sheet with names scribbled in pen. In shaky handwriting, Tasha W. appeared next to a date yesterday. "She signed up?" Ethan asked. The nurse came around, frowning. "Yes, she wanted to help when she could. But she was too unstable to commit. Still, it shows she was here in good faith. She was trying." Ethan studied the fragile loops of her letters. A woman holding on to dignity, even as the ground beneath her kept shifting. He straightened, pulling out his phone. For a moment, he hovered over the contacts of his board chair, his lawyers, his assistant. He should have been prepping for calls. Damage control over the photos already hitting the press. Instead, he opened the camera, snapping a picture of the pay stub and the volunteer sheet. Evidence, small but undeniable. Anna tugged at his sleeve. "Can we go look for her now?" "Soon," Ethan said. "But I need to understand the ground first." He crouched, eye level with her. "If we find people who hurt her, who made her life harder, do you trust me to handle it?" She studied him carefully. "If you're really on our side." He held her gaze. "I am." The nurse cleared her throat gently. "If she was forced to leave, she may have gone toward the warehouses. Briggs leases space down near the bayou. We've had patients mention it complaints about unsafe conditions." That matched the guard's story. Pieces were converging. Ethan thanked the nurse, pressing a folded 100 across the counter. She pushed it back. "We're not here for money, sir. Just bring her home." For a man used to buying solutions, the refusal stung, but also humbled. He nodded once. Back outside, the drizzle had tapered to a sticky humidity. Ethan helped Anna climb into the SUV. Max settled beside her, his muzzle resting on her lap. Ethan paused before starting the engine. His phone buzzed again. A message from Marjorie Kent, the board chair. Cole, what are you doing? News cycle is spiraling. Investors are livid. He typed a single reply before pocketing it. I'm busy finding a missing mother. The IPO can wait. Anna glanced at him, as if sensing the weight of that decision. You're choosing us over them. Ethan didn't deny it. He pulled onto the road, merging with the morning traffic. Billboards and taillights smeared in the damp air. Anna rested her head against the window, eyelids heavy but her grip on the scarf unrelenting. She said one day people would see me and only see trouble, Anna murmured. But you don't look at me like that. Ethan's throat tightened. People are wrong more often than they admit. Don't let them write your story. She gave a small smile, one that looked too tired for her years. Then don't you write it either. Just help me find her. Max barked once, as if agreeing to the pact. The SUV turned south, toward the warehouses by the bayou, carrying with it a billionaire who had spent years hiding from responsibility, and a child who refused to let him look away. The morning air clung heavy with humidity as Ethan turned the SUV off the main road into a small city park. The trees dripped with leftover rain, their branches bending low, and the swings on the playground creaked in the light breeze. It was nearly empty except for a jogger circling the track and an old man feeding pigeons under a gazebo. Ethan parked near a bench, cutting the engine. He looked at Anna, still clutching the scarf, her eyelids drooping from exhaustion she refused to admit. Out, he said gently. We need a break. Anna frowned. What if we miss her? What if she walks by while we're just sitting here? Ethan shook his head. If she's anywhere near, we won't miss her. But you're running on fumes. Even soldiers rest between battles. She studied him, skeptical but too tired to argue. Max leapt down first, trotting a perimeter sniff as if the park itself might hold clues. Anna slid out slowly, dragging the jacket he had wrapped around her shoulders. They settled in the gazebo. Ethan brushed away breadcrumbs before Anna sat, her legs swinging above the ground. He handed her a granola bar he had pocketed from the clinic vending machine. She unwrapped it carefully, like it was a gift, and took small bites. The old man at the far end gave them a polite nod before returning to his pigeons. The world felt momentarily quiet, almost normal, which unsettled Ethan more than chaos. He had spent years in boardrooms filled with tension, but this silence with a child watching him expectantly felt heavier. Anna broke it first. You didn't answer me last night. Ethan raised an eyebrow. About what? Why you're helping me. Her tone was not accusing, just curious, but there was steel under it. He considered the easy answers, because he had money, because she knocked, because no one else would. But none felt true enough. Finally, he said, because once, I stood in the rain waiting for someone who never came. I don't want you to know that kind of waiting. Anna chewed silently, eyes searching his face. Then she asked the question he dreaded. Did your mom leave too? Ethan swallowed. He wasn't used to being asked about his past, let alone by a 6-year-old. My father left. My mother tried, but she was drowning in her own storms. So I grew up learning not to expect anyone. Anna tilted her heel. But you came for me. He let out a slow breath. I'm trying. They sat in quiet for a moment. The pigeons scattered when Max barked at them, then returned stubbornly. Anna reached down, stroking the dog's head. He likes me. Animals know who's safe. Ethan almost smiled. He's a better judge of character than most men I've met. She leaned closer, her voice low. Promise me something. Don't leave me. Even if it gets hard. People always leave when it gets hard. Her words pierced him more than any boardroom betrayal. Ethan had lived his life ensuring he could walk away first, before anyone else had the chance. But looking into her wide, determined eyes, he realized leaving wasn't an option this time. I promise, he said, the words heavier than contracts he had signed worth billions. As long as you need me, I'll be here. Anna nodded slowly, as if weighing his sincerity. Then she reached into her backpack, pulling out a crumpled drawing. She spread it on the bench. A stick figure version of herself holding hands with a taller figure labeled, Mom, a sun overhead. The paper was smudged from rain, but the colors glowed stubbornly. I made this for her yesterday, she whispered. She said she'd put it on the fridge, but she never saw it. Ethan touched the edge of the paper carefully, like it was something sacred. She will, he said. We'll make sure she does. The jogger passed by again, nodding to Ethan with vague recognition. A man in a tailored suit sitting in a park with a little girl was bound to spark curiosity. Ethan ignored it. His phone buzzed, once more messages piling up, but he left it in his pocket. Instead, he asked, "What's your favorite thing she makes for you?" "Your mom." Anna's eyes softened. "Mac and cheese. The kind from a box. But she adds extra butter, so it's creamy. She says fancy food is overrated." Ethan chuckled softly. She's not wrong. They shared a small laugh. Fragile but real. For a moment, it felt like a family scene, not a crisis. Ethan almost let himself believe it. Then Anna's tone sharpened. "If those men hurt her, will you make them pay?" Ethan froze, startled by the venom in her small voice. She stared at him fiercely, fists clenched around the scarf. "Everyone acts like poor people's pain doesn't count. Like nobody will ever stand up for us. But you can. You're rich. You're powerful. You can make them listen." Her demand wasn't childish, it was a charge. Ethan felt its weight settle on him. He had fought for profit, reputation, and control. Fighting for someone else's justice was new. "Yes," he said finally. "If they've done wrong, they won't get away with it." Anna leaned back, satisfied. Max laid his head on her lap, as if sealing the vow. The old man feeding pigeons wandered closer, offering crumbs to Anna with a smile. "Don't let the world make you hard, little one," he said kindly. She took the bread, feeding it to Max instead. Ethan caught the old man's eyes. There was recognition there, a flicker of knowing. Sometimes strangers carried wisdom more pointed than friends. When the pigeons fluttered off and the park quieted again, Ethan checked his watch. "We should move. There's more ground to cover." Anna hopped down from the bench, re-energized by food and the fragile comfort of promises made. She tucked the drawing carefully back into her backpack. "Let's go then. Mom's waiting." Ethan stood, rolling his shoulders. He had been many things in life: programmer, CEO, recluse. Today, for reasons he barely understood, he was a guardian. He guided Anna and Max back to the SUV, the sun finally breaking weakly through the clouds. As they drove out of the park, Ethan caught sight of their reflection in a puddle: the sleek car, the suited man, the small girl, the faithful dog. An unlikely team bound by rain, truth, and a vow. The road ahead was uncertain, and danger was closing in. But for the first time, Ethan no longer felt like he was driving alone. By mid-morning, the storm had burned away into a low, muggy haze. The Houston sun pushed through the clouds, steam rising from pavement, as Ethan's SUV rolled into a tired strip of asphalt fronting Briggs Fuel number 17. The convenience store's fluorescent lights buzzed. Half of the letters on the sign burned out, so it read only Brig S. A row of fuel pumps stood empty, their concrete islands slick with rainwater and oil stains. Ethan parked close, scanning the storefront. Anna leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "This is it." She always said the manager was mean, but she kept going because it was the only place that would take her. Max whined, nose twitching at the crack of the window. Ethan cut the engine. "Stay close. Let me do the talking until we know what we're dealing with." They stepped inside. The store smelled of burnt coffee, stale chips, and bleach. Behind the counter, Ray Sutter stood again, thicker in daylight. His pale skin flushed from lack of sleep, a grease stain on his shirt. He stiffened when he saw them, irritation flashing into unease. "Well, look who's back," he said, voice falsely casual. "You people have a habit of poking your noses where they don't belong." Ethan didn't blink. "We're here for Tasha Williams. She didn't go home last night. We know she worked here. We know your records are doctored." He placed the damp pay stub on the counter like evidence in court. Ray's jaw worked. I told you. She clocked out early. That's all I know. People disappear all the time in this city. Not my problem. Anna stepped forward, small fists clenched. You're lying. The guard saw her leave with one of your men. Ray's eyes darted briefly toward the security monitor above his head before he covered it with a sneer. Kid stories. You shouldn't believe everything children say. Ethan's tone dropped low, dangerous. You forged her hours. You threw away her badge, and now she's missing. You think that adds up to coincidence? The trucker from earlier walked in, grabbing a soda from the cooler. He froze at the tension, eyes flicking between them. Word was spreading too many witnesses now for Ray to bluff easily. Look, Ray muttered, leaning closer. I don't want trouble. She was struggling, okay? Sometimes she left shifts early. Sometimes she came in late. She had issues. Maybe she wandered off. That's all. Anna's voice cracked but carried fury. Her issues don't make her worthless. The declaration hit harder than any argument Ethan could have crafted. Even the trucker gave Ray a sharp look. Ethan pressed. The man in the blue Briggs jacket, who is he? Ray froze. A beat of silence, then he barked a laugh too loud, too forced. Could be anybody. Half our drivers wear those. You know exactly who. Ethan said. Tell me, or I'll make sure every regulator in Texas is crawling through your books by morning. Ray's face reddened. You rich types think you can throw threats around. This isn't your world. This is exactly my world, Ethan countered, his voice like steel. It's the world where men like you think you can bury people alive because no one powerful cares enough to look. Consider me looking. Max growled, hackles up. The tension drew the trucker closer. Hey man, he muttered to Ray. You better just answer. Ain't worth the heat. Ray's eyes flickered with calculation. But before he could respond, a younger clerk came out from the back with a box of snacks. He froze at the scene, blinking. Ethan turned his gaze on him. Who took her? The clerk shifted uncomfortably. I don't know names, sir. But there was a driver. Big guy, white beard, works nights. Folks call him Big Jim. He wears that blue jacket. Ray snapped, shut your mouth. But the clerk went on, his voice trembling. I saw him talking to her. She didn't look happy. Then they went out together. That's all I know. Ethan committed the name to memory. Big Jim. Finally, a lead. He picked up the pay stub from the counter and tucked it into his jacket. You've lied enough, Mr. Sutter. Next time, it won't just be me asking questions. Ray's bravado cracked again. But he kept his jaw locked, saying nothing. Ethan turned, guiding Anna toward the door. Max followed, a steady shadow. Outside, the sun bore down on the steaming asphalt. Anna tugged his sleeve. See? I told you he knew. He was hiding her. He's hiding something, Ethan corrected. Whether he's holding her or just covering tracks, we'll find out. But now we have a name. Anna repeated it softly. Big Jim. She hugged the scarf tighter. We have to stop him. Ethan opened the SUV door for her. And we will. He slid behind the wheel, adrenaline steady in his veins. He had spent his career fighting boardroom wars, battles of contracts, and stock options. But this hunting down a missing woman, protecting a child from the system's cruelty, this felt like the first real war he had ever fought. His phone buzzed again with another alert. He glanced at the screen. Breaking news, billionaire Ethan Cole seen, escorting child around city. In search for missing mother. The photo captured them walking out of the clinic, Anna gripping his jacket sleeve. Comments already scrolled beneath, some accusing, some sympathetic. The world was watching now. He set the phone aside, hands firm on the wheel. We'll track this, Jim, he said. And when we find him, we'll find your mother. Anna's voice steadied. And you won't leave me? His eyes flicked to hers in the rearview mirror. Not now. Not ever. The SUV pulled back onto the highway, headed toward the Bayou warehouses, where answers waited in shadows and danger pressed closer with every mile. The fluorescent lights inside Briggs Fuel number 17 flickered when Ethan stepped back through the door, Anna and Max close behind. He hadn't planned to return so soon, but every instinct told him the truth was still trapped inside this dingy convenience store. Ray Sutter looked up from behind the counter. Startled, then scowled. "Didn't I just tell you everything? You're starting to look like a man with too much time on his hands." Ethan ignored the jab. His gaze went to the corner where a black security monitor glowed faintly. Grainy footage cycled through different camera angles, pumps, aisles, the register. The system wasn't down at all. "Funny," Ethan said, his voice low. "You told me your cameras weren't working." Ray's face tightened. "Glitchy system. Sometimes it records. Sometimes it doesn't." Anna's small voice carried across the store. "That's a lie. You're lying again." The trucker from earlier, who happened to be back grabbing another soda, raised his brows. "Kid's right. Cameras look fine to me." Ethan walked slowly to the counter, his presence filling the cramped space. "Pull last night's footage," he demanded. "Midnight to 1 a.m. Ray shook his head, forcing a chuckle. "Not how it works. Only corporate can approve footage pulls. Chain of custody, privacy, all that red tape. My hands are tied." Ethan leaned in, his eyes cold. "You've already tied your own hands by falsifying records and lying to investigators. You think corporate will protect you when this hits the news?" Ray swallowed, his bluff unraveling. He looked around the store, but no backup was coming. His voice dropped to a growl. "Listen, rich man, you don't get to storm in here throwing accusations. You're making a mess you can't clean up." Anna stepped closer, her fists clenched around the scarf. "He's scared. That means Mom was here. He knows more." Ray slammed his palm on the counter. "That's enough out of you." His outburst startled a woman browsing chips. She left her basket and hurried out. Max's growl rumbled deep, the kind that froze muscles. Ethan didn't flinch. "I don't like raising my voice," he said evenly, "but I will if I have to. Now open the system." Ray's lips curled. "You think you can bully me? You've got a fancy car and a dog. That doesn't mean you run this place." Ethan straightened, his calm returning like a blade sliding back into its sheath. "You're right. I don't run this place. But I do run companies worth more than your entire chain. I can place one call and have your district manager here within the hour. Another call, and federal investigators will be crawling through your files." He let the words hang. "Or, you could simply show me the footage and save yourself a world of pain." Ray's jaw twitched. For a moment it looked like he might comply, then he snapped the monitor's power switch, plunging the screens into black. "Oops. Guess the glitch hit again," Anna gasped. Ethan's eyes hardened. "You just buried yourself." The trucker whistled low. "Man, you just cooked your goose." Ray tried to mask his nerves. "Get out, both of you, and take your mutt." Ethan didn't move. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. "Smile," he said, snapping a photo of the now dark monitor and Ray's sweating face. "Evidence of obstruction." Ray swore under his breath, his voice low but bitter. "You don't know what you're stepping into. Briggs has friends. People who don't like troublemakers." Anna's eyes flashed. "Good. Then they'll have to look at us. And they'll know we're not afraid." Her defiance startled even Ethan. He rested a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Come on," he said, guiding her toward the door. Max backed out slowly, eyes never leaving Ray. Outside, the air smelled of gasoline and wet asphalt. Anna looked up at Ethan, whispering, "He's hiding her." "I know it." Ethan crouched, meeting her gaze. "Maybe not here, but he's part of the chain that led her away. And chains can be broken." He opened the SUV door for her. She climbed in, still clutching the scarf like armor. Max leapt into the back, panting lightly, waiting. Ethan pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts until he found an old ally from his corporate security days. He dialed, "I need you to pull digital records for Briggs Fuel number 17. Camera system uptime logs, past 48 hours, quietly." Send them straight to me. He ended the call before questions could come. Anna peered at him. You just made enemies, didn't you? He gave a grim half-smile. Wouldn't be the first time. The SUV merged back onto the highway. The city skyline ahead. Ethan felt the net tightening. A missing woman, a corrupt company, and a child who had tethered him to a promise he couldn't shake. He glanced in the mirror, Max's steady eyes, Anna's fierce determination, and knew turning back was no longer possible. Some battles were forced on you. Others you chose. This one was both. The SUV rolled south on I-69. Traffic thickening as the city fully woke. Ethan kept one hand steady on the wheel, the other tapping restlessly against the console. His phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't another board member or investor. The screen lit with an unfamiliar number, area code local. He debated ignoring it, but instinct said otherwise. He answered with a curt "Cole." A woman's voice, measured and professional, filled the cabin. Mr. Ethan Cole? This is Monique Carter with Child Protective Services. I'm calling regarding a report we received this morning. We've been informed you're in possession of a minor who is not your child. Is that correct? Beside him, Anna stiffened, clutching the scarf tighter. Ethan's jaw set. She's not in my possession. She asked me for help. Her mother is missing. Monique's tone didn't change. Be that as it may, sir. CPS protocols require immediate verification of the child's safety. Can you tell me your current location? Ethan's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror where Anna's wide, fearful eyes met his. He lowered his voice. With respect, Miss Carter, my priority right now is finding her mother. This girl has been left too many times. I won't add to that. There was a pause on the line. Mr. Cole, I understand your concern, but you must also understand. If we cannot verify the child's circumstances, law enforcement will be dispatched. This could escalate quickly. Ethan's patience snapped. Escalate. Do you want a headline that says CPS pulled a child away from the only person searching for her mother? Because that's what you'll get if you force this. Another pause, longer. When Monique spoke again, there was a trace of weary humanity beneath the protocol. Mr. Cole, where is the child's mother now? Ethan exhaled, tightening his grip on the wheel. We don't know. That's why we're out here, chasing leads. Briggs Fuel, missing pay stubs, falsified records, a man named Big Jim. You want to ensure the child's safety? Help me bring her mother back. Monique sighed. I'll note the file, but understand me. We will be checking in again, and soon. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. The line went dead. Ethan tossed the phone onto the console, jaw tight. Anna's voice was small but fierce. They want to take me away, don't they? He glanced at her. They want to follow rules. Rules don't always see the whole picture. She stared straight ahead. If they take me, Mom will come back and I won't be there. She'll think I left her. I can't let that happen. Ethan felt something heavy shift inside him. The fear in her voice was too familiar, echoing his own childhood nights when officials had threatened to split him from the little stability he had left. I gave you my word, Anna, he said quietly. I'm not letting them take you. Traffic slowed near a toll booth. Ethan's phone buzzed again, this time with a news alert. On the screen was a grainy photo of him guiding Anna through the clinic doors, Max trailing behind. The headline read, Reclusive billionaire seen with child amid missing mother case. The article already had hundreds of comments. Speculation running wild questions about kidnapping, guardianship, scandal. Anna caught the headline reflected in the glass. They're making it sound like you stole me. Ethan's lips thinned. People who don't know the truth always fill the silence with lies. He tapped the screen off. As the SUV merged back into the flow, Ethan swung into a small diner off Alameda. They needed food, and more importantly, a moment to breathe. He parked, ushered Anna inside, Max padding faithfully at their heels. The diner smelled of bacon, grease, and coffee strong enough to wake the dead. A waitress in her 50s, with teased hair and bright lipstick, raised an eyebrow at the sight of Ethan in his damp suit and Anna in his oversized jacket. But when Anna smiled shyly, the waitress's face softened. "Sit wherever you like, sugar." They slid into a booth. Ethan ordered scrambled eggs and black coffee. Anna got pancakes with extra syrup. While they waited, Ethan opened the cracked phone they had found. The screen flickered, ghost images of apps and photos still buried inside. He pressed the power button again, but it died with a faint hiss. Anna traced the edge of her plate with a finger. "If CPS takes me, will you fight them?" Ethan's eyes lifted from the phone to hers. "I've fought bigger forces than CPS. The difference is, this one matters." Her gaze didn't waver. "Then fight like she would fight for me." The waitress returned with plates, sliding the pancakes in front of Anna. "Eat up, sweetheart." Anna drowned them in syrup, hunger momentarily overtaking fear. Ethan stirred his coffee, watching the child devour bite after bite. Around them, snippets of conversation floated: workers discussing overtime, an elderly couple debating their church's Sunday schedule. Ordinary lives, untouched by the storm swirling around their booth. Ethan felt the gulf between his world of boardrooms and this diner widen. He wondered, not for the first time, what life might have looked like if he had grown up at a table like this, with someone who stayed. Anna broke the silence. "What happens if we don't find her soon?" Ethan set his mug down. "Then we keep looking. The trail doesn't end until she's home." Max barked softly under the table, as if agreeing. A man at the counter folded his newspaper, giving Ethan a curious glance. Recognition flickered. Ethan knew the story was spreading faster than they could keep up. By tonight, every investor, every board member, every journalist in the city would know he was driving around with a missing child. He leaned forward, speaking low so only Anna could hear. "We need to move carefully now. Not just for your mother's sake, but yours. Eyes are on us." Anna swallowed a forkful of pancake, then looked up. "Let them watch. Maybe then they'll see people like us matter." Her words struck him harder than Monique's threats or the headlines. He realized the fight ahead wasn't just about one missing woman. It was about exposing every crack in the system that had let Tasha fall through. He signaled for the check, dropping bills on the table. "Come on," he said. "We've got work to do." Back in the SUV, he buckled Anna in, Max settling in the back. His phone buzzed once more, but he ignored it. The road stretched south, toward warehouses, toward Briggs, toward a confrontation he could feel tightening like a storm about to break. Anna rested her head against the window, whispering, "She'll come back to me. She has to." Ethan glanced at her reflection in the glass, then back to the road. "And we'll be there when she does." The city swallowed them again, traffic pressing on all sides, but Ethan's resolve held steady. Whatever CPS, the press, or Briggs threw at him, he would fight it. For the first time in his life, it wasn't about empire or legacy. It was about keeping a promise to a little girl who refused to be forgotten. The diner's warmth lingered on Ethan's skin as he guided the SUV back onto the freeway, but his mind was colder than the air conditioning blasting through the vents. The words of the CPS worker and the smear of the headline still rattled in his skull. Anna sat in silence beside him, fingers sticky with syrup, scarf folded neatly across her lap. Max yawned in the back seat, stretching out across the leather like a sentinel ready to wake at the first sign of trouble. Traffic slowed near an interchange. Ethan flicked the blinker, eyes scanning mirrors, a reflex drilled from years of defensive living. His phone buzzed again, another cascade of calls and texts. He ignored them until Anna asked softly, "What are they saying about us now?" Ethan didn't want to answer, but lying felt worse. "Some people think I shouldn't be with you. They don't know the truth." She studied his profile. "Then tell them. Why don't you just tell everyone what you're doing?" His jaw clenched. He had built his life on silence, on controlled narratives fed carefully to the press. The idea of stepping into the noise, vulnerable, went against everything he'd practiced. "Because once the story belongs to the crowd, you can't take it back," he said. Anna shook her head, her small voice sharpening. "You think you're protecting me by staying quiet, but silence makes it worse. People will believe the lies unless you tell them the truth." The directness stunned him. For a moment, Ethan saw not a 6-year-old but a young woman forged too soon by the world's cruelty. She wasn't asking for publicity, she was asking for dignity. He merged onto a quieter road, pulling into the lot of a closed laundromat. The neon sign flickered weakly, even in daylight. He shifted into park, turning to face her. "You don't understand how ruthless the media can be." "I understand being invisible," Anna said, meeting his eyes. "That's worse. My mom works herself sick, and nobody notices until she's gone. Nobody cares unless it's a story. So make it a story they can't ignore." Her words cut through him, deeper than any boardroom insult. Ethan looked at Max, who had lifted his head, ears pricked as though waiting for the verdict. Then he pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over the screen. Anna leaned closer, whispering like it was a sacred oath. "If you tell them the truth, then they'll know we matter." Ethan opened his social app, the one his PR team begged him never to touch. His following numbered in the millions, though he rarely spoke. He typed slowly, his thumbs deliberate. "I am with a child named Anna Williams. Her mother, Tasha, is missing. She was last seen near a Briggs fuel location. We are searching. If anyone has seen her, come forward. No parent should vanish into silence." He attached the photo he'd taken of the doctored pay stub and the volunteer sheet from the clinic. He showed it to Anna before hitting send. "Are you ready for this?" She nodded once, fiercely. "I was born ready." He pressed post. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then his phone erupted notifications, messages, shares cascading, in real time. The story was no longer whispered in comments. It was front and center, broadcast by Ethan Cole himself. Anna exhaled, a smile flickering at the corner of her mouth. "Now they can't pretend we don't exist." Ethan leaned back against the seat, the weight of the decision settling. He had just sacrificed his most prized possession, control. The board would erupt, investors would panic, the IPO could crumble. But for the first time, those losses didn't terrify him. What terrified him was failing the child beside him. The phone rang again. He almost silenced it. But the caller ID read Mrs. Green. He answered, "Ethan." Her warm, no-nonsense voice scolded through the speaker. "You've kicked a hornet's nest. Reporters are camped outside the gate. CPS is circling like hawks. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I won't let this girl disappear the way I did," Ethan said. His voice surprised even himself with its clarity. Mrs. Green sighed. "Then you'd better brace yourself. Once you stand up, there's no sitting back down." "I know," he said, ending the call. Anna leaned against the window, watching the blur of the city. "You sound different when you talk about me." "Softer," he chuckled dryly. "Don't tell anyone. They'll think I've gone human." She giggled, then grew serious. "You were already human. You just forgot." Max barked once, as though agreeing. The SUV rolled onward, weaving through side streets. Ethan kept glancing at his phone as tips began pouring in sightings of Tasha near warehouses, mentions of Briggs trucks idling by the bayou, whispers of workers shorted on pay. A map of leads formed in his mind, the hunt sharpening. Anna's voice pulled him back. "If we find her and she's hurt, what happens to me?" He looked at her, really looked at her. "Then we'll make sure you're safe. Not in some foster file. Not lost in the system. Safe. With her, if possible. With me. If it isn't, She blinked. "You'd keep me?" Ethan hesitated only a second. "I'd fight for you." Anna sat back, satisfied. For a child who had learned not to trust words, she seemed to believe his. And Ethan felt the weight of that belief, like a chain he refused to break. The road opened ahead, the skyline shrinking in the rear view. Ethan felt the midpoint of their journey pressing down. No turning back now. He had gone public, staked his reputation, invited enemies to show their teeth. And yet, with Anna's steady gaze beside him and Max's presence at his back, he realized he felt more alive than he had in decades. The girl's whisper carried over the hum of the engine. "Now it's real." Ethan nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Now it's war." The SUV rumbled back into Midtown as the afternoon sun broke through the haze, casting sharp shadows across the concrete. Ethan steered toward the bus station again, the place where Tasha had last been seen. His post had detonated across social media. Every minute his phone buzzed with tips, accusations, sympathy, outrage. He ignored most of it, focusing only on the trail. Beside him, Anna clutched the scarf like a compass pointing home. The bus station looked the same as before, dingy, fluorescent lights buzzing, travelers drifting in and out. But now it carried a different weight. Reporters loitered near the entrance, cameras hanging from their necks like predators waiting for movement. Ethan parked on the far side, hoping to slip in unnoticed. But the moment he stepped out, a young journalist shouted, "Mr. Cole, are you kidnapping this child or saving her?" Anna stiffened, her small hand tightening around his. Ethan's jaw hardened. He didn't respond. Max growled low, deterring anyone from stepping closer. Together they pushed inside. The lobby was calmer. A janitor mopped near the vending machines. In a corner, leaning on a post with a styrofoam cup, stood the same security guard Ethan had glimpsed before, older. Shoulders stooped but eyes sharp, the bearing of a man who once wore a uniform with pride. Ethan approached him directly. "Sir," Ethan said quietly, "we need to talk about last night." The guard looked him up and down, gaze shifting to Anna. Something in his face softened. "You her little girl?" Anna nodded, eyes fierce. "I am. My mom's gone. And you saw her." "Ugh." The guard exhaled, scratching his grizzled beard. "Yeah, I saw her. Midnight, give or take. She looked out of sorts, like she hadn't eaten. Saturday over there by the vending machines. Kept glancing at the doors like she was waiting for someone. Did anyone approach her?" Ethan pressed. The guard's voice dropped. "A man in a blue Briggs fuel jacket. Big guy, stocky, white, beard-streaked gray. Folks around here call him Big Jim. He wasn't rough, but the way he guided her out, hand on her elbow, like he owned her, didn't sit right with me." Anna whispered the name like a curse. "Big Jim." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Which direction?" The guard pointed toward a side exit leading to the service alleys. "They went that way. Toward the warehouses." He hesitated, then added, "I'm a vet. Did tours overseas. You learn to read when something's wrong. That woman didn't want to go. But she didn't see another choice. Zill." Ethan nodded slowly. "Thank you." The guard's gaze sharpened. "You're putting yourself in the crosshairs, Mr. Cole. Briggs isn't some mom-and-pop shop. They've got friends in high places. Men like that don't like sunlight." Ethan met his stare evenly. "Then we'll shine brighter." The guard studied him a moment longer, then reached into his pocket. He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper and pressed it into Ethan's hand. "I jotted down a plate number last night. Thought it might matter. Blue Briggs truck, heading toward the Bayou warehouses. Couldn't shake the feeling I'd need it later." Ethan unfolded it, scanning the scrawled numbers. A real lead at last. He tucked it safely into his jacket. "You did the right thing." The guard gave a weary half-smile. "Old habits. We were trained never to leave someone behind." He looked at Anna. "And your mom's not behind yet." Anna's chin trembled, but she stood tall. "Thank you, sir." Ethan guided her back toward the SUV. The reporters outside surged again, shouting questions. "Mr. Cole, is the child safe? Did Briggs Fuel abduct her mother? Are you interfering with an investigation?" Ethan didn't break stride. But as they climbed into the car, Anna muttered, "They don't care about her. They just want a story." He started the engine. "Then we'll give them one they can't twist." As they pulled away, his phone buzzed again, this time a direct message from a journalist he trusted, one who had covered corporate corruption before. The message was simple. "Got tips about Briggs wage theft. Workers scared to talk. Meet?" Ethan's mind raced. The pattern was clear now. Forged hours, threats of termination, employees vanishing into silence. Tasha had tried to survive in that system, and Briggs had exploited her weakness. Anna broke the silence. What if they hurt her already? Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. "Then we'll still bring her home. And we'll make sure they answer for it." Max barked once, sharp, as if affirming the vow. They drove south, the skyline shrinking in the mirror, warehouses looming ahead in the distance. The bayou shimmered under the sun, its edges lined with corrugated metal buildings and idle trucks. The plate number in Ethan's pocket felt like a loaded weapon. He glanced at Anna, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "We're getting closer," he said. She nodded. "I can feel it. She's waiting for us." For the first time that day, Ethan let himself believe she might be right. The warehouse district shimmered in the noon heat, the air thick with the smell of diesel and rust. Ethan's SUV rolled to a stop near a chain-link fence. Beyond it, corrugated metal buildings loomed, their paint peeling, shadows clinging stubbornly to the corners. Anna leaned forward, her forehead pressed to the glass. "She's here. I know it," she whispered. Ethan scanned the lot. A couple of Briggs trucks sat idling, their engines humming low. No workers visible, though he was sure eyes were watching from somewhere inside. Max shifted in the back seat, growling softly, hackles raised. Ethan placed a calming hand on his head. "Easy, boy." His phone vibrated, another flood of notifications. The post he'd made earlier had exploded far beyond his control. News outlets were quoting it. Workers had begun sharing stories, and messages streamed in faster than he could read. He skimmed one, saw a woman matching her description near the old Briggs warehouse by the bayou. Looked unwell, with a man in uniform. Another read, "I worked for Briggs. They cut hours, threatened us." Tasha wasn't the first. He knew what this meant. The silence was breaking. Anna tugged his sleeve. "Why aren't we going in?" Ethan sighed. "Because we can't just storm into private property. Not yet. We need leverage. Proof." She looked up at him, eyes fierce. "You said silence makes it worse. So make noise." Her words echoed the promise he'd made to her. And to himself. He unlocked his phone again, opened the app, and began to type. This isn't just one missing mother. This is a pattern. Briggs Fuel has stolen wages, buried complaints, and now one of their workers is missing. If you have information, come forward. If you've been hurt, speak now. I'll make sure the world hears you. His thumb hovered over the button. He felt the weight of the decision. Posting it would mean war. Not just against Briggs, but against the board of his own company, against investors who would see him as reckless, unstable, a liability. He thought of the years he'd built his empire, the cold sacrifices he'd made. Then he looked at Anna, holding her mother's scarf like a flag. He hit send. The effect was immediate. His phone buzzed so violently he nearly dropped it. Within minutes, thousands of comments poured in. Workers from Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, each leaving pieces of the same story. Hours stolen, threats whispered, lives eroded by fear. And amid it all, new tips about sightings of Tasha. Each one placing her closer to the bayou. Anna's face lit with something like relief. Now they can't ignore us. Ethan leaned back, the adrenaline sharp in his veins. Number, they can't, The call came seconds later. His board chair, Marjorie Kent. He answered, her voice slicing through the line. What in God's name do you think you're doing? The market is in free fall. Investors are panicking. You've just jeopardized an IPO worth billions. Ethan's voice was calm, almost too calm. A woman's life is worth more than an IPO. This isn't about one woman, she snapped. You are dragging our name into scandal. Do you realize the liability? The exposure? Exposure is the point, Ethan said. Briggs has been hiding in the dark too long. If the cost of shining light is a few billion less in valuation, so be it. There was silence. Then Marjorie hissed, You've lost perspective. If you don't stand down, the board will move to strip your authority. Don't test me. He ended the call without replying. Anna's voice was quiet. They're mad at you, aren't they? They'll get over it, Ethan said, though he wasn't sure. He wasn't even sure he cared anymore. Max barked suddenly, pawing at the window. Ethan followed his gaze. Across the lot, a warehouse door creaked shut, a figure vanishing inside. For a split second, he thought he saw a flash of a floral print. Anna gasped. That was her scarf. She's in there. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. He started the engine, but forced himself to stay measured. Charging in without a plan would put Tasha at risk. He circled the block instead, pulling into a quiet side street. Listen, he said, turning to Anna. We have to be smart. We'll get her, but we need backup. The guard gave us a plate number. We have leads. We'll bring the right people in. Anna's eyes filled with frustrated tears. But what if they move her again? What if she's gone before we come back? He reached over, resting a steady hand on hers. Then we keep chasing, no matter how many times. We don't stop. Her lip trembled, but she nodded. Ethan looked out at the rusting skeletons of warehouses. He could almost feel the corruption seeping from the walls. This wasn't just about Tasha anymore. This was about every person Briggs had chewed up and thrown aside. And he knew the fight was about to get much uglier. Max rested his head on the back of Ethan's seat, eyes forward, steady. Ethan drew strength from the dog's silent loyalty. He pulled the SUV back into the road, his decision already made. All right, he murmured. We've called the world's attention. Now let's see what happens when Briggs realizes they can't hide anymore. Anna straightened in her seat, determination radiating from her small frame. Then let's find Mom. And as the SUV rolled toward the looming warehouses, Ethan Cole, man of numbers, power, and silence, realized he had crossed a line no board, no investor, no corporation could pull him back from. He was at war, not for stock or profit, but for justice, and justice had Anna's face. The sun slid westward, casting long shadows across the bayou's edge as Ethan pulled the SUV into a narrow service lane. Warehouses loomed like silent sentinels, their rusted siding streaked with years of grime. The air carried the scent of diesel and stagnant water. Anna sat bolt upright in her seat, fists tight around her mother's scarf. Max whined in the back, restless, nose twitching against the glass. Ethan killed the engine and scanned the lot. The plate number the guard had given him, Texas tags with a faded Briggs logo, was there, parked crooked beside a loading dock. A big rig with a blue cab and dented fenders. His pulse kicked. That's the truck, he said. Anna leaned forward. So Mom's inside? Maybe, Ethan answered. Or maybe she was here and they moved her. Either way, this is our best lead yet. He turned to her, lowering his voice. You stay in the car, lock the doors. If anything happens, Max will protect you. Anna's eyes flashed. I'm not hiding. She's my mom. I'm going with you. The stubborn defiance in her voice was familiar. He'd heard it in his own as a boy. Begging not to be left behind. Ethan sighed. You can't fight them, Anna. But you can help me by being safe. She shook her head fiercely. Safe doesn't bring her back. If you go alone, they'll lie to you. They'll tell you she was never here. But they can't lie to me. She's my mom. I'll know. Ugh. The argument was a knife twisting in his gut. He hated that she was right. Finally, he nodded. Fine. But you stay behind me. And you don't run. Max barked once, as if sealing the pact. They slipped out of the SUV and moved across the lot. The gravel crunched underfoot, loud in the silence. Ethan's instincts prickled. The place felt watched. Though he saw no cameras, he guided Anna toward the loading dock, keeping his body between her and the shadows. The dock door was pulled halfway down, leaving a gap. Voices drifted out low, male, laced with the rhythm of men who thought they owned the space. Ethan crouched near the opening, listening. Told her to sit tight, one voice said. Boss doesn't want her causing a scene. She's twitchy, another replied. Kept asking for her kid. Said someone was coming. Anna's breath hitched. Ethan gripped her shoulder. Quiet, he whispered. His pulse hammered. They had her. Tasha was alive. He peeked through the gap. Inside, the warehouse was dim, lit by a few hanging bulbs. Pallets of boxed supplies lined the walls. Near the center, a folding chair sat against a column, and there, slumped but breathing, was a thin woman with braids, a floral print scarf missing from her neck. Anna nearly cried out. But Ethan covered her mouth gently. Tears welled in her eyes as she stared at her mother. Two men in Briggs' jackets stood nearby, one pacing, one smoking. Both carried the casual menace of people too comfortable with cruelty. Ethan memorized their faces, every detail. He pulled back, whispering to Anna, "She's alive, but we can't just walk in. We need a plan." Anna's whisper was fierce. "We can't leave her." "We won't," Ethan promised. "But rushing in gets us all hurt. Do you trust me?" She hesitated, then nodded, though her body trembled with the urge to run. Ethan looked around. A side door hung ajar on the far end of the building, padlock broken. He led Anna around, Max padding silently at their heels. They slipped inside through the shadows, weaving between pallets. The smell of motor oil and sweat was thick. Ethan crouched behind a stack of crates, close enough now to hear the men clearly. "She's more trouble than she's worth," the smoker muttered. "Big Jim's late. Thought he was bringing the boss down here to figure it out." The other laughed darkly. "Boss'll make the call. Either way, she's not walking out." Anna's small fingers clutched Ethan's sleeve. Her whisper was ragged. "They'll hurt her." Ethan's mind raced. He had no weapon, no backup, only Max, his own resolve, and the truth that silence would kill them all. He looked at Anna, at the fire in her eyes, and made a choice. He stood. The men jerked at the sound of his footsteps. "Who the hell?" One started, but froze at the sight of Ethan Cole. Billionaire face they'd seen on screens, stepping out of the shadows with a child at his side and a dog baring its teeth. "You have something that doesn't belong to you," Ethan said, his voice like iron. The smoker sneered. "You're out of your mind, walking in here. You don't know who you're dealing with." "I know exactly," Ethan replied. He gestured toward Anna. "That's her mother. Let her go now." Anna darted forward before he could stop her, crying out, "Mom!" The woman on the chair lifted her head weakly, eyes widening. "Anna?" The men lunged, but Max erupted in a snarl, leaping between them. His growl was primal, holding them back. Ethan positioned himself beside Anna, shielding her. "Touch them," he warned, "and every camera in this city will know what you did. The world is already watching. Briggs is already burning. Add kidnapping to the list, and you'll be done." The smoker hesitated, glancing at his partner. Fear cracked through his bravado. From the far door, heavy footsteps echoed. A new figure appeared, massive, bearded, jacket with the Briggs patch. Big Jim. His eyes landed on Ethan, then on Anna, then on Tasha. His scowl deepened. "What the hell is this?" The air tightened like a wire stretched to breaking. Anna clung to Ethan's arm, whispering, "That's him. That's the man who took her." Ethan squared his shoulders. For the first time in years, he felt no hesitation. The war had come to meet him. Big Jim filled the doorway like a slab of concrete, his frame blocking the thin light from outside. His boots thudded against the warehouse floor as he stepped forward, the air shifting with his presence. The two men in Briggs' jackets glanced nervously at him, then back at Ethan, as if unsure whether to stand their ground or run. Anna pressed closer to Ethan, her small fingers digging into his sleeve. Her eyes were locked on her mother, who sat trembling in the folding chair, wrists bound with plastic ties. Tasha's gaze flickered between her daughter and the giant man looming in the doorway. She whispered hoarsely, "Anna, no. Run." Ethan put himself squarely between Anna and the men. His voice was low, steady, carrying the authority of a man used to boardrooms but sharpened now by something raw. "It's over. You're going to release her, right now." Big Jim's laugh was a gravelly growl. "Release her? You think you can just walk in here, city suit, and tell me what to do? This ain't Wall Street. This is my yard." Max snarled, muscles coiled, his teeth bared at Jim's boots. The tension thickened, every second stretching taut. Ethan didn't flinch. "Your yard belongs to Briggs. And Briggs belongs to the public now. The whole world is watching. One wrong move from you, and your name, your face, this warehouse, it'll all be out there in minutes." Jim's eyes narrowed. You think people care about some sick woman and her kid? People forget. Headlines fade. But a man like me? I keep going. Nobody stops me. Anna's voice cut through the air like a blade. I'll never forget. You took my mom. You made her scared. And now everyone knows your name. The girl's defiance rattled even Jim. He sneered, but there was unease in his shifting stance. You should have kept your mouth shut, little girl. Ethan stepped forward, calm but dangerous. Say another word to her, and I'll bury you with truth. Briggs is already bleeding. Imagine what happens when the world hears how you abducted a mother in front of her child. Jim's lip curled. He flicked his chin at the two men. Get him out. One man moved, but Max lunged with a bark so fierce the man stumbled back, hands raised. The smoker cursed under his breath, retreating toward the shadows. It was clear they weren't ready to die for Jim's orders. Tasha moaned, swaying in the chair. Anna tried to run to her, but Ethan held her back. Not yet. Jim took another step, his fists clenching. You don't walk out of here, Cole. You've poked your nose too deep. This isn't about the girl. It's about power. And men like me don't give it up. Ethan met his stare, refusing to blink. Power isn't fear. Power is the truth. And the truth is, you're a coward hiding behind threats. For a beat, silence hung heavy. Then Jim swung. A massive fist slicing the air. Ethan shoved Anna behind him, barely ducking in time. The punch cracked against a metal beam, rattling the warehouse. Max launched forward, teeth snapping near Jim's arm, forcing him to stumble. Anna screamed, "Stop, please." The chaos froze them all for a heartbeat. Jim's chest heaved, his face twisted in rage. Ethan stood tall, breathing hard but voice steady. She goes with us. Or you go down right here. The two other men exchanged a look, then backed away, muttering. One spat on the floor but didn't step closer. Their loyalty to Jim had cracked. Jim growled, eyes darting to Tasha, then back to Ethan. You think you've won? This isn't finished. Briggs doesn't fold because of one loud billionaire. Ethan's voice was cold steel. Briggs folds because the people you've crushed are finally standing. And I'll make sure they don't stand alone. He moved quickly, pulling a pocket knife from his jacket, an old habit from years of being guarded but never unprepared. In one swift motion, he cut the plastic ties binding Tasha's wrists. She gasped, rubbing her arms, her weak voice trembling. Anna broke free, darting into her mother's arms. I found you, Mom. I found you. Tasha clutched her daughter, tears streaking down her face. Ethan's chest tightened at the sight. For a moment, it felt like victory, but he knew it wasn't done. Jim loomed closer, fury boiling. You'll regret this, Cole. You don't get to walk out of here with her. No. Ethan stepped in front of the reunited pair, Max growling at his side. His words came out like a final judgment. Try to stop me. The warehouse buzzed with the sound of silence, tension vibrating in the air. The two men had already slipped out the side, unwilling to fight for Jim's pride. Now it was just him, hulking and furious, against a billionaire who'd rediscovered his humanity, a loyal dog, and a child who refused to bow. Jim's jaw tightened. For the first time, he seemed to realize the world outside those walls was bigger than his fists. He spat on the ground, muttering, "This ain't over," before storming toward the back exit. His boots echoed until they faded. Anna clung to her mother, whispering promises. Tasha wept into her daughter's hair, repeating, "I'm here, baby. I'm here." Ethan gave them space, scanning the warehouse one last time. The fight wasn't finished. He knew Jim would return, and Briggs wouldn't go quietly. But for now, Anna had her mother in her arms, and that was enough. He crouched beside them. "We need to move. Now. You're not safe here." Tasha nodded weakly, leaning on Ethan as he guided them toward the door. Anna refused to let go of her hand, clutching it like she'd never release it again. Max trotted close, ears high, ever watchful. Outside, the bayou breeze felt like the first breath after drowning. Ethan loaded them into the SUV, glancing back at the warehouse. Shadows clung to it, secrets still buried inside. But the war had shifted. They weren't just searching anymore, they were protecting, defending, exposing. As he slid into the driver's seat, Anna whispered from the back, voice fierce with triumph, "We found her. They can't take her from me again." Ethan looked at her through the mirror. Then at Tasha, fragile but alive, holding her daughter. For the first time, he allowed himself a small, genuine smile. "You're right," he said. "They won't." The SUV sped away from the warehouse, tires crunching gravel before hitting the cracked asphalt road. Ethan kept one hand steady on the wheel, the other checking the mirrors for headlights that might follow. His pulse was still hammering from the confrontation with Big Jim. In the back seat, Anna clung to her mother, who sat slumped but conscious, her thin frame wrapped in Ethan's jacket. Max lay across the seat with his head on Tasha's lap, eyes sharp, guarding her as if he understood she had just come back from the edge. "Mom, you're safe now," Anna whispered fiercely, her small hands clutching Tasha's. "I told you I'd find you." Tasha's lips trembled. Her voice was rough, but the love in it was undeniable. "You're my strong girl. I knew you wouldn't give up." She looked at Ethan, tears sliding down her cheeks. "And you, I don't even know why you helped us, but thank you." Ethan kept his eyes on the road, unwilling to let the moment soften him too much. "Don't thank me yet. Briggs isn't finished. Big Jim won't let this go." Anna pressed her cheek to her mother's shoulder. "We'll fight him. We'll fight all of them." The words tightened Ethan's throat. She sounded too old for 6 years. But maybe that was what survival demanded. As they approached the city, the reality of what waited hit him. News vans had multiplied since morning, parked near intersections like vultures circling roadkill. Reporters swarmed the sidewalks with microphones ready. His phone vibrated nonstop. CPS, lawyers, board members. There was no hiding anymore. "Brace yourselves," Ethan muttered. He turned onto Main Street, and instantly the press spotted them. Cameras flashed, voices rose in a chaotic storm. "Mr. Cole, is this the missing woman? Are you holding them against their will? Anna, are you safe? Do you want to stay with him?" Anna shrank against her mother, wide-eyed. Tasha clutched her tighter, whispering soothing words, though she looked as terrified as her daughter. Ethan gritted his teeth and pulled into the lot of the Montrose Clinic, the only place that felt like safe ground. The SUV was instantly surrounded. Max barked furiously. Pressing his paws to the window, Ethan killed the engine and stepped out first, tall and unflinching. The reporters surged, shoving microphones in his face. "Mr. Cole, why risk your fortune and reputation for this?" one asked. Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. "Because money without justice is worthless." This woman was exploited, silenced, nearly disappeared. That ends today. The crowd roared with more questions, but Ethan ignored them, opening the back door. Anna climbed out first, gripping her mother's hand tightly. Cameras flashed wildly as Tasha emerged, fragile but standing. Gasps rippled through the crowd. This was no rumor now. "Mom," Anna cried, lifting their joined hands high as if showing the world. The gesture hit harder than any speech. The image of a child refusing to let go of her mother became the story, whether the media liked it or not. A woman in a navy blazer pushed through the press. Her badge identified her as CPS, Monique Carter. The voice from the phone. She looked weary, professional, but her eyes softened at the sight of Anna and Tasha together. "Mr. Cole," she said firmly, "we need to talk. For now, both mother and child must come with us for evaluation." Anna's grip tightened. "No, they'll take me away. Please, Mr. Cole, don't let them." Ethan crouched, meeting her tearful eyes. His voice was steady, quiet enough only she and Tasha could hear. "I promised you I wouldn't leave you, and I won't. But we have to do this the right way. If we fight CPS head-on, we'll lose. If we walk in together, we stay in control." Anna sniffled. "Together?" "Together," Ethan assured her. He rose, addressing Monique loud enough for the crowd. "We will cooperate. But you should know the entire city is watching. Any attempt to separate them without cause will not just be a legal fight. It will be a moral one. And I don't lose those. Monique held his gaze, then nodded. Understood. Let's take this inside. Inside the clinic, the chaos of flashing cameras was replaced by the sterile hum of fluorescent lights. Nurses bustled, leading Tasha to a room for immediate care. Anna refused to release her mother's hand, so they examined them together. Ethan remained just outside the curtain, Max at his heel, ears tuned to every sound. Through the thin partition, he heard Anna's small voice, firm and insistent. She's my mom. She didn't leave me. Those men tried to take her, but we beat them. Tasha's weak laugh trembled. Yes, baby, we did. When Monique stepped back out, she looked at Ethan differently, not just as a wealthy man, but as someone who had carried a burden most would have abandoned. They'll need rest, she said. But you should know, this isn't over. Briggs won't take this exposure lightly. Ethan nodded. Neither will I. He glanced through the curtain, where Anna sat perched on the edge of the bed, clutching her mother's hand as though she could fuse them together by sheer will. The sight etched itself into him like a scar. Outside, the press still clamored. Headlines already forming. Markets already reacting. Ethan knew the storm was only beginning, but in that moment, with Anna's laughter breaking through the clinic walls and Tasha alive beside her, he felt the first taste of victory. And for the first time in decades, Ethan Cole didn't care what it cost. The night fell heavy over Houston, but the city was anything but quiet. Every television screen in every diner, bar, and living room carried the same headline. Billionaire Ethan Cole harboring missing mother and child hero or kidnapper. The footage looped Anna clinging to her mother, Ethan shielding them from the swarm of reporters, Max barking like a soldier in formation. The narrative was shifting in real time. And Briggs Fuel had decided to strike back. Inside the clinic, Ethan stood at the narrow window of the consultation room, phone buzzing relentlessly in his palm. Messages from his legal team, his board, even distant relatives poured in. Each one boiling down to a single question. What have you done? He ignored most of them, scrolling only to the latest alert. Briggs had released a statement. It was slick, corporate, and poisonous. We are deeply troubled by the irresponsible behavior of Ethan Cole, who has interfered in an active investigation and endangered a child by spreading misinformation. Briggs Fuel is cooperating fully with authorities to ensure the safety of all parties. Ethan read it twice, jaw tightening. It was exactly what he expected. Deny, deflect, paint him as reckless. And yet, beneath the polished words, was a threat. Briggs wasn't just defending itself, they were coming for him. Behind him, the sound of quiet breathing filled the room. Tasha lay in a hospital bed, IV dripping into her thin arm. Anna sat curled beside her, refusing to sleep, her small hand clutching her mother's as if afraid it would vanish. Max kept his vigil at the foot of the bed, eyes half closed but ears alert. Monique Carter from CPS entered quietly, a tablet in her hands. She glanced at the sleeping pair before pulling Ethan aside. You should see this. She turned the screen toward him. It was a local news feed. Briggs's lawyers were live on camera, accusing him of exploiting a vulnerable family for publicity. Mr. Cole's sudden involvement appears less about compassion and more about distraction, one attorney said slickly. He is facing pressure from investors. And what better way to deflect than to play the hero? Ethan's stomach twisted. They're trying to spin this as a stunt. Monique nodded grimly. And people will believe it if you don't fight back. Briggs has reach. Judges, politicians, even some of my colleagues, they'll lean on them. If they convince a court you endangered Anna, custody could be removed within days. Ethan glanced at the bed. Anna had finally dozed off, cheek pressed against her mother's arm. The idea of strangers tearing her away, of undoing every mile they'd traveled together, ignited something deep in him. Then we don't let them, he said. His voice was calm, but beneath it was steel. Monique hesitated. If you push this, you'll be in the center of a firestorm. Briggs will use everything: lawsuits, smear campaigns, maybe even threats to your life. Are you ready for that? Ethan looked at the girl asleep with the scarf still clutched in her fist. I've spent my whole life preparing for battles that didn't matter. This one matters. Yes, I'm ready. By morning, the storm had grown. News trucks still ringed the clinic, their lights piercing the dawn. Protesters had gathered two half with signs that read "Justice for Tasha" and "Stand with Cole," the other half waving placards accusing him of exploitation. The city was splitting down the middle, and Ethan knew the board of his company would not stay silent. The call came at 8 a.m. sharp. Marjorie Kent's voice was icy, stripped of the warmth she once used to keep allies close. "Cole, the board has convened. Effective immediately. Your authority is suspended pending review. You've tanked our IPO. Congratulations, you're a liability." Ethan's lips thinned, but he didn't argue. If protecting a woman and her child makes me a liability, then maybe I've been working for the wrong people. "You've lost everything," Marjorie hissed. "No," Ethan said quietly. "I've found something worth more than everything." He ended the call. The board's betrayal barely registered compared to what happened next. A black SUV pulled up outside the clinic, flanked by police cruisers. Men in suits stepped out, Briggs's lawyers, accompanied by officers holding a court order. Reporters swarmed instantly, cameras flashing. Inside, a nurse hurried down the hall. "Mr. Cole, they're here." "They have papers." Ethan moved fast, stepping into the hallway as the men approached. The lead attorney held up the order like a trophy. "By ruling of the Harris County Court, custody of Anna Williams is temporarily transferred to Child Protective Services pending investigation." "Step aside, Mr. Cole." Behind him, Anna's frightened voice echoed. "Ethan, what's happening?" He turned his head just enough for her to see his face, calm and steady. "Stay with your mom, Anna. I'm right here." The Briggs attorney smirked. "Don't make this harder. The girl will be taken," the mother evaluated. "And you, Mr. Cole, can return to your empire." Ethan took one deliberate step forward, his voice carrying down the hall like a verdict. "You don't get to dictate her story. Not anymore. If you want to rip a child from her mother's arms in front of the whole city, then go ahead. Do it in the light. Because every camera outside will see exactly who Briggs protects and who they destroy." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. The lead one shifted, lowering the paper slightly. "Sir, our orders." Monique Carter appeared, her voice sharp. "Those orders were expedited under questionable circumstances. I'll be filing an injunction. Until then, no child leaves this building." The hallway crackled with tension. Briggs's lawyers sneered, but the officers hesitated. Outside, chants from protesters swelled, their voices carrying through the glass. "Justice for Tasha. Don't take Anna." Anna darted into the hall then, clutching her scarf, eyes blazing. "You can't take me," he promised, and I believe him. She ran to Ethan's side, her small hand gripping his. The sight was undeniable: child choosing protector, mother weak but alive behind her, community rising outside. The officers stepped back. The lawyer cursed under his breath, retreating with the paper still clutched in his fist. Ethan exhaled, squeezing Anna's hand. "It's not over," he murmured. Anna nodded, her chin high despite the tremor in her lip. "Then we keep fighting." And as the crowd's roar grew louder outside, Ethan knew the next round of this battle would not be fought in alleys or warehouses, but in courts, cameras, and hearts. Briggs had struck hard, but the ground beneath them was beginning to shift. The courthouse steps were a battlefield before Ethan even arrived. Protesters lined the square, their voices splitting into two fierce camps. On one side, handmade signs reading "Justice for Tasha" and "Protect Anna" waved high above the crowd. On the other, neatly printed placards funded by Briggs's PR machine declared "Cole exploits the poor and protect families from billionaire meddling." Reporters clogged the staircase, cameras flashing like lightning. The black SUV pulled up to the curb. Ethan stepped out first, dressed not in his usual tailored armor but in a plain suit, the kind any man might wear to church. Max padded at his side, leash in hand, the dog's steady presence drawing gasps from the crowd. Then Anna emerged, clutching her mother's hand. Tasha moved slowly, her body still weak, but her chin was high. The image of the three of them together, the billionaire, the fragile mother, and the defiant child hit the reporters like a spark to dry tinder. Questions rained down. "Mr. Cole, are you acting as her guardian? Tasha, did Briggs abduct you? Anna, do you want to stay with Ethan Cole?" Anna raised her scarf defiantly, her small voice carrying further than it should have. "I want my mom, and I want him to help us." The square erupted. Ethan placed a steadying hand on her shoulder and led them through the doors. Inside, the marble echo of the courthouse felt colder than any boardroom he had ever entered. The hearing room was packed. At the front sat Judge Harlan, an older black man with tired eyes that suggested decades of watching power grind the powerless. On one side, Briggs's legal team sat in crisp suits, their briefcases stacked like weapons. On the other, Ethan's makeshift defense, Monique Carter from CPS, who had agreed to testify to the irregularities in Briggs's filings, and a few pro bono attorneys who had stepped forward after his public call for justice. The bailiff called order, and the room hushed. Briggs's lead attorney rose first, voice slick as oil. "Your Honor, we are here today because a child's safety has been jeopardized. Ethan Cole, a man with no parental claim, has inserted himself recklessly into a delicate situation. My client, Briggs Fuel, merely wishes to ensure the truth is not distorted by a publicity stunt." Ethan kept his face calm, though inside his chest burned. The lawyer made it sound like Briggs was the protector, not the predator. Then Monique stood. "Your Honor, I have reviewed the circumstances. The child was not endangered by Mr. Cole. Quite the opposite, he prevented harm. The mother was found restrained in a Briggs-owned warehouse. That alone demands scrutiny." A murmur rippled through the room. Briggs's attorney shot to his feet. "Objection. There is no verified evidence linking my client to this so-called warehouse." Ethan rose, holding up the crumpled paper the guard had given him. "Plate number, cited by a security officer at the bus station. Belongs to a Briggs truck, and I have more." He pulled the doctored pay stub and volunteer sheet from his jacket, setting them on the evidence table. These documents prove not only that Tasha was shorted wages, but that she was working to hold her life together when Briggs stripped her dignity. The judge leaned forward, studying the papers. "These will be reviewed. Continue." At Ethan's nod, the courtroom doors opened again. The old security guard entered, leaning on his cane. The man walked slowly, but with purpose. When he spoke, his voice was rough but steady. "Name Samuel Turner, 20 years Army. I saw that woman, Tasha, at the station. Saw Briggs's driver Big Jim escort her out. She didn't want to go. I knew something was wrong." Gasps rippled through the benches. The Briggs attorney sputtered, "This is hearsay." But Judge Harlan silenced him with a raised hand. "Noted. The testimony will stand." Tasha, still pale, asked to speak. The courtroom fell silent as she struggled to her feet, Anna gripping her hand for balance. Her voice trembled but grew stronger with each word. "I worked for Briggs Fuel. I gave everything I had, but they cut my hours, cut my pay, and when I complained, they threatened me. That night, they told me I had no choice. I thought I'd never see my daughter again." Anna's eyes brimmed with tears, but she stood tall beside her mother, lifting the scarf like a banner, "And I told them I'd never stop looking." The moment landed like a hammer strike. Even the judge's tired eyes softened. Briggs's attorney scrambled to recover. "Your Honor, this is a tragic misunderstanding, but it cannot excuse Mr. Cole's reckless interference. The girl must be placed in neutral custody until matters are resolved." Ethan finally rose to his full height, his voice resonant in the chamber. "Neutral custody? That's just another way of saying silence. This child does not need strangers. She needs her mother. And she needs to know that when the powerful try to erase people like them, someone will stand in the gap. I've lost my company, my so-called reputation, but I won't lose this fight. Not while they're still standing." Max barked once, the sound startling in the stillness, as though even the dog demanded justice. Judge Harlan tapped his gavel lightly, eyes scanning the room. "Enough. This hearing is adjourned until I have reviewed the evidence. But let me make one thing clear. If what I am hearing holds weight, then Briggs Fuel will answer for more than a missing woman. They will answer for years of abuse." The gavel came down. The crowd outside erupted again as word spread. Some shouted Ethan's name like a rallying cry. Others cursed him as a fraud. As they left the courthouse, Anna looked up at him, her face flushed with emotion. "You told the truth. Now everyone knows." "Ma." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. Steady and sure. "This was only the first battle, but we'll see it through all the way." Tasha's voice was faint, but it carried the weight of gratitude and grief. "You gave me back my child. Whatever comes next, you gave me that." Ethan glanced at the cameras flashing wildly beyond the courthouse doors. For once, he didn't shrink from the light. He walked forward, Anna and Tasha on either side, Max leading the way, into a city that was no longer looking away. The final day dawned gray over Houston, the sky heavy with clouds that seemed to mirror the tension in the air. Outside the courthouse, the crowds had doubled workers holding handmade posters with their pay stubs taped to cardboard, mothers pushing strollers, veterans in worn jackets. Their chants rose in waves. "Justice for Tasha. Justice for all." Across the street, Briggs's hired supporters shouted back. But their numbers looked thinner now. The tide was shifting. Inside, the courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Every bench was filled, and the walls were lined with people willing to stand for hours just to witness the end of the fight. Tasha sat at the front, Anna perched protectively beside her, Max lying faithfully at their feet. Ethan stood, his suit pressed but his face drawn, not with fear but with the weight of what was at stake. He had lost his board. His wealth was bleeding daily, and yet he felt steadier than ever. Judge Harlan entered, gavel in hand. The murmurs fell silent. This court reconvenes for final deliberation in the matter of Briggs Fuel and the Williams family. His voice carried a gravity that pressed against every heart in the room. Briggs's attorneys went first, speaking with the desperation of men who knew the ground beneath them was collapsing. They painted Ethan as reckless, Tasha as unstable, and Anna as a child manipulated by adult theatrics. "Your Honor, corporations employ millions responsibly. To villainize one company is to risk the livelihoods of thousands," the lead lawyer argued, sweat beading on his brow. Then Monique Carter stood, calm, deliberate. She laid out the evidence, the forged pay stubs, the testimony of Samuel Turner, the plate number, the warehouse. Piece by piece, she constructed a story too solid to ignore. "This is not about one family," she said. "This is about a system that preys on the weak, and a corporation that profited from silence." But silence broke the moment Anna knocked on Ethan Cole's door. Gasps rippled through the room. Anna squeezed her mother's hand and stood, her voice carrying louder than her sighs. "They tried to make her disappear, but I found her, and I won't let anyone take her away again." Judge Harlan regarded her quietly, then turned his gaze to Ethan. "Mr. Cole, you have jeopardized your fortune, your reputation, and possibly your future." "Why?" Ethan rose slowly, his voice low but steady, the kind of voice that carried because it was stripped of pretense. "Because when Anna came to my door, I saw myself alone, waiting for someone who never came. I realized all my wealth meant nothing if I turned her away. I cannot erase the boy I was, but I can protect the girl she is. And if that means losing everything I built, then so be it. At least I lose it for something true." The silence in the courtroom was palpable. Even Briggs's lawyers faltered. Judge Harlan lifted his gavel. "This court finds sufficient evidence that Briggs Fuel engaged in unlawful wage practices, intimidation, and unlawful detainment of Tasha Williams. I hereby order a full federal investigation into Briggs Fuel and the immediate suspension of its operations pending inquiry." He shifted, his tone softening. "Furthermore, I see no grounds to separate Anna Williams from her mother. Custody remains with Tasha Williams. And as for Mr. Cole, while the law does not make him her guardian, this court recognizes the extraordinary measures he has taken. His continued involvement, at the mother's discretion, is permitted and protected." The gavel struck. The room erupted, cheers, tears, cries of relief. Reporters rushed to file, breaking headlines. "Briggs Fuel crumbles, under court order. Williams' mother and daughter, reunited." Ethan Cole sacrifices empire for justice. Anna threw her arms around Ethan's waist, looking up at him with eyes brimming. You kept your promise. Ethan bent, resting a hand on her small shoulder. We both did. Tasha's voice trembled as she reached for his other hand. You saved more than just me. You showed the world we matter. He shook his head. You did that yourselves. I just stood beside you. Outside, the crowd roared as the three of them stepped into the light. Strangers reached out, not for autographs but to shake hands, to say thank you, to tell their own stories of struggle. Workers lifted Anna onto their shoulders, chanting her name. She laughed for the first time in days, the sound carrying like a bell through the square. Reporters swarmed, but Ethan stopped, facing the cameras directly. His voice was firm, resonant. This is not the end. Brigs may fall, but there are other Brigs out there. If you've been silenced, speak. If you've been wronged, rise. You are not invisible. And if I can stand with one child, then I will stand with you all. The crowd erupted. For the first time, Ethan felt the power of his voice not as a weapon for profit, but as a shield for justice. That night, back at the modest house he had avoided for years, Ethan sat on the porch while Anna and Tasha dozed inside. The cicadas hummed, and the air smelled of rain. Max lay at his feet, snoring softly. Ethan stared into the dark, the quiet pressing close, and felt something he hadn't in decades. Peace. He had lost billions, but gained something far greater, the certainty that he had not wasted his life behind glass walls. He had stepped into the storm and found a reason to stand. Inside, Anna stirred, whispering in her sleep. We found her. We found her. Ethan closed his eyes, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Yes, they had found her. And in the process, he had found himself. The lesson from this story is simple yet profound. True wealth is not measured by the size of one's fortune, but by the courage to stand beside those who have been forgotten. Ethan Cole lost an empire, but gained something no boardroom could give him: the knowledge that justice, loyalty, and compassion are the only legacies worth leaving behind. Anna's voice reminded the world that even the smallest among us can demand to be seen. And Tasha's survival showed that dignity can endure even in the darkest places. Together, they prove that when silence is broken by truth, hope is born again.